Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So we just hit 200,000 subscribers. I'd like to thank all of you guys for that amazing achievement. We're not done yet. We're going to continue growing ahead of the election. And speaking of the election, we are 51 days away from Election Day. We already have people voting in certain states as we speak. And this election is very hotly contested, and it's important that we do yet another election prediction at the mid-month mark. We just had the first debate, but you look at the national polling, is there a lot of movement that we see here in the national polls? And not a lot post-debate. And a lot of movement we do see does come from how the news cycle's moving. Response bias in one direction or another direction. If there's something that's big for Trump, Trump's going to see a rise. If there's something that the media spins for Harris, Harris is going to see a rise. That's typically how it works. But the reality is that most people have made up their mind at this point about who they're voting for. It's not about the battle of persuasion, more so than the battle of turnout. You have a very close race. You have the swing states, every single swing state, the polls are within 1.3% one way or another. That doesn't really tell us a lot, but we can look and we can see what is to be expected in the here and now based off of certain things and certain metrics that we have, and we're going to predict the election on this map here. But first, I have to tell you guys really quickly about shop.redeaglepolitics.com because the 2024 election drop is here. We are letting the memes flow, and we can do that with the Make Cats Safe Again merch that we have on the site, the new merch that dropped post-debate. You guys can check it out, and we're also running a special. You can buy one, get one, 20% off all t-shirts, tank tops, and mugs. My favorite mug right here. If you guys see my recent videos, I've talked about it. The Trump iconic black mug. You have the Trump bullet design with the American flag on the front, the inspirational quote on the back. Would highly recommend it. You guys can check out the merch store at shop.redeaglepolitics.com. The link is in the description and the pinned comment down below. But in terms of the election prediction, we're going to fill this out. We're going to start off with the safe states, and we're going to work our way down to the more competitive states. Now, the safe column includes states that are going to go for either side by 10% or more. And for Donald Trump, we'll start off with the safe red states. We have Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana. We have the Dakotas. We have 4 out of the 5 electoral votes in Nebraska. We have Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alaska. I know they have like this ranked choice voting system, but on the first ballot, I expect Trump to get more than 10%. I expect him to win regardless. Also, we have Indiana. We have the state of Ohio. That will enter his column as well. Iowa. The Seltzer poll dropped today. Was only Trump plus 4, but typically the September Seltzer polls vastly underestimate Trump compared to their final polls, which are typically regarded to be the gold standard. And then you have Maine's 2nd district, and the state of Florida will be entering this column. That registration data is ridiculous for Republicans. They've netted like 1.2 million voters since Trump won the state by an already decent margin. And on the Democrat side, of course, we have California, Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, the entirety of the West Coast outside of Alaska, and we have much of these states up here in the Northeast. You have the state of New York, even though the margins could get closer there. You have Maine's 1st district. You have the state of Illinois, as well as the state of Colorado, all going in the Democrat column by 10 percentage points or more. So already, Donald Trump starts off with 179. Kamala Harris starts off with 191. Now we're going to move on to the likely states, the states that will be voting either Republican or Democrat between 5 to 10 percentage points. And on the Republican side, we have the state of Texas. There's been plenty polls out of Texas that we've seen. Donald Trump is winning pretty much all of them by over 5 points. And this is a state where Republicans are going to look to turn a corner. You saw big suburban shifts in 2020. It's kind of unlikely in the current environment you're going to see those same suburban shifts because a lot of the shifts that we've seen are baked into the cake. You may even see a reversion based off of Hispanic trends that kind of, you see the downstate portion, especially the Tejano voters downstate moving vastly to the right. I think you're going to see Texas rebound, turn a corner, especially with the border issue. I think Trump should take it probably by around 7 to 8 points, give or take. You have a competent GOP in Texas and one that is really driven on getting out the vote there as well. So in terms of the likely Democrat states, here we go. The state of Virginia. I think Donald Trump will improve in Virginia. You're not going to see Biden take Virginia by, 10 points again. Growth is slowed in Northern Virginia. Trump will probably do a little bit better in like the Virginia Beach area, rural Virginia. It's not going to be enough to win the state, but it will be closer than 2020. Also, we have the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire has changed a lot. You have a lot of migration just from the Boston area in Massachusetts that has spilled over into southern New Hampshire. It's not the same state it was even back in 2016. I think it's going to be closer. I think that Harris is going to take it by like 5 to 6 when it's all said and done. Also, the state of New Mexico. Trump will improve with Hispanic voters, white working class voters in New Mexico, but you also have a lot of liberals that live in the Albuquerque area that kind of are going to keep the state in the Democrats' column, especially this time around. But I do expect Trump to improve in the state of New Mexico. So those are the likely states. Now we're going to move on to the lean states, the states that will be going for either the Republicans or the Democrats between 2 to 5 percentage points. And we will be starting off with the state of North Carolina. North Carolina is the state of the big 7 swing states that Donald Trump held in his column in the 2020 election. And looking at the current polling, Donald Trump does lead the current polling by a very narrow margin, but it's important to understand the only pollsters that had Donald Trump winning in the state of North Carolina past this point back in 2020, you had Trafalgar, I believe you had Insider Advantage, and that was like it. It was only these like right-leaning pollsters that were the accurate ones, and a lot of the mainstream media polls typically missed a lot of these voters that live in rural North Carolina, the white working class base that showed out for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020 in the state. And the Harris campaign's confident that they actually could win North Carolina, at least compared to how they're in a position in a lot of these other swing states. But you talk about just the fact that the Charlotte metro, it's not growing at the same rate, and it's got different educational demography than like the Atlanta metro, for example, and you have a lot of these counties that are, either not shifting left or even shifting to the right that add up across the entire state. You have a competent GOP. I think Trump's going to take it by like 2 to 3 when it's all said and done, maybe by a little bit more than that if he has a good night. But that's North Carolina. And this may be a bold move as well, but the state of Wisconsin, I'm going to put Wisconsin in Donald Trump's column, in the lean column. I think he wins it by more than 2. I don't think he wins it by much more than that. But pollsters do not know how to poll Wisconsin to save their lives. I'm not saying I anticipate some 2020 level polling error or 2016 level polling error where the polls underestimate Donald Trump by 6 to 7 points. But am I saying that Donald Trump does flip the state back into his column given trends and it's not really talked about a lot? Yeah, he has this unique base in the driftless area. They're very hard to reach in terms of the polls. He's going to hold his own in the counties surrounding Milwaukee. I think he's going to do better in like these white working class areas in the Fox Cities, Green Bay, Racine and Kenosha. He'll do well there. Democrats already, are operating at peak capacity for the most part in a place like Madison, which has kind of slowed in terms of its growth that it saw in the late 2010s. Overall, I think that Donald Trump is going to take the state. I think he's going to take it by like 2, and it's going to surprise a lot of people by the margin that he takes it. As things stand today, things can change, not the final prediction, but that's where we have it at now. So we're going to be moving on to the lean Democrat states that Democrats are going to win by 2 to 5 percentage points. We're going to start off with the state of Maine. I think the state of Maine, it's kind of got a mind of its own. I think it does vote to the right of New Hampshire this election cycle, especially in terms of the first ballot of voting. They do have ranked choice voting. The end result may be a little interesting, but in terms of the first ballot, at least, it will be within 5 points, probably not much closer than that. But Biden did have that unique northeastern appeal that somebody like Kamala Harris just does not exactly have, and you kind of see that here. Also, You will see Nebraska's 2nd district. Just given trends, you might see a rebound, but I think that Harris is going to end up taking Nebraska's 2nd by 4 to 5 percentage points when it's all said and done. Party registration data looks better for Republicans, but it doesn't look like all that great for them, all things considered. Also, the state of Minnesota. We've seen so many polls out of Minnesota that are within 5. I think it could be within 5. And Tim Walz, he's not that popular in rural Minnesota. He actually did worse than Biden in rural Minnesota, including certain parts of his own district, against a very weak candidate in 2022, and he was an incumbent governor running for re-election. Compare that to Tony Evers, who increased his margin from last time, or Gretchen Whitmer, who increased her margin from last time. You didn't exactly see the same thing happen in Minnesota. Tim Walz is not going to have a positive impact. He may even have a negative impact overall, but I just think that you'll see, Harris go out there. You're going to have a decently high, protest vote in the Minneapolis area. Not as much as you would have if Biden was the Democrat nominee, but it's going to be a 4.5% win, in my opinion, for Kamala Harris when it's all said and done. So that leaves us 5 states on the map, 5 remaining swing states that will be going in the tilt column within 2 percentage points either way, and Donald Trump currently at 245 electoral votes, Kamala Harris at 226 electoral votes. We're going to start off with the state of Pennsylvania, and this is a must-win state for Kamala Harris, probably a little bit more so than Donald Trump, even though she somehow thinks that North Carolina is more likely to flip into her column than she is to keep Pennsylvania in the Democrat column. But, you could talk about the registration data or the mail-in request data not being as good for Democrats as it was even in 2022. But when you look at this, you have all these polls, the polls that were in 2020 vastly overestimating Joe Biden in the state, the same polls even in many cases showing a tied race. Kamala Harris is not really a great fit for the state of Pennsylvania, all things considered. Joe Biden had that home field advantage in northeastern Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia area. And while I think she might do better in a county like Montgomery, maybe even like Chester, I think you might see Trump rebound in Bucks and also really run it up in a county like Philadelphia and possibly see some reversion in the Lehigh Valley because Biden is no longer on the ticket. He'll do just fine in the Pittsburgh exurbs with these white working class voters. He'll continue to run it up in the rural areas. And I think he's going to carry the state by probably 1 to 2 points when it's all said and done as things stand right now. So we also have the state of Georgia, which again, the mail-in request data, and the same thing goes for North Carolina. From what we can tell, it is whiter than 2020, and it's also down from 2020 significantly, and even 2022 it's down or at least stagnant, and Democrats did not do super well in those states there. And you also did have an electorate that was more college educated than you did see in 2020, which did not really benefit Republicans all that much on the surface. But in terms of what we're seeing out of the state of Georgia, it does seem that you will see an electorate that will have lower turnout overall in certain Democrat strongholds in the Atlanta area. And Donald Trump just needs to hold his own and get the rural base out. I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to flip Georgia back into his column. It's going to be close because the state has changed. It's not what it was back in 2012 in the Atlanta suburbs, let alone even 2004. But still, I think Georgia, you're going to see Republicans go out there. I think Trump's going to take the state when it's all said and done. It'll rebound into the Republican column. You're not going to have black turnout as high as it was in 2020. And also, there has been election integrity legislation that has been passed and signed into law by the governor a couple of years back. So we got 3 states left. Michigan. The polls out of Michigan, this is very interesting because you look at Michigan and the polls we've seen, the in-state pollsters are all showing the same thing. You look at the Detroit News, you look at what we saw out of the Detroit Free Press, which I believe is in the multi-candidate polling race here. Yeah, you have the Detroit News, you have Epic MRA, that's the Detroit Free Press. You also have the Mitchell research, they're all showing a tight race. But you look at the state of Michigan, and where is Michigan exactly won? Well, first of all, there are these densely populated smaller metros and rural areas. You would expect Trump to do better with white working class voters than he did last time there. And I also think Wayne County is crucial because, yes, obviously the Muslim vote, people talk about it. Harris is in third place in the polls in Michigan with Muslims that we've seen, which is hilarious. And it's a small portion of the population, but it all adds up. That could net Donald Trump 30, 40,000 votes. And in a close election, that could be enough to push him over the top. But I think he will improve significantly in Wayne County. I think you're going to see that there. I think he will turn a corner in Oakland County and Macomb County as well because of the auto industry. And Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, their policies, you could not see a more clearer difference there. And Trump is hitting her hard on it overall. And Michigan is another state that you will see Donald Trump's message play out well. He does better than any other Republican in the state that we've seen in recent memory. And I think he's going to take the state narrowly as things stand now. So that's a change from the last prediction, by the way. And now we're going to go to the Southwest. Because we have two states there, and obviously Trump crossed the threshold, but there's two states to analyze in the Southwest, Nevada and Arizona. And in 2022, Republicans did underperform expectations in both, in part because you had an electorate that was less working class than a presidential election year. And you will not probably see that same electorate this time around. The lower propensity voters in both states moving to the right, that's definitely going to help out Donald Trump. That's definitely going to help him in Arizona, help him in Nevada. These are states that are, moving in opposite directions, one could say, but they are similar to a large extent. You have a large Hispanic population. Hispanics are moving right. Nevada's seeing an influx of conservative Californians, even into Las Vegas. The tax on tips policy that Trump proposed that Harris tried to steal to no avail, you're probably going to see that play out to his advantage in a state like Nevada. As to Arizona, similar thing. I think you'll see a rebound in Maricopa because a lot of the McCain types, they already fled. That's the problem with a lot of these people that think Arizona is going to move left off a cliff because of some Trump-specific problem. It's about how is Donald Trump going to do getting his own base to turn out, and is Harris really going to even have much appeal to those suburbanites who backed Trump in 2016 and 2020. I think Trump is going to end up flipping more voters overall. I think inflation as well as the border issue in Arizona, both of those are very big issues, and you will see Donald Trump end up winning both of these states. I think they're going to be close between 1 and 2 percentage points when it's all said and done, but I think Trump's going to take them. And he's going to take the country as a result. 312 electoral votes for Donald Trump, 226 for Kamala Harris. We still have 51 days to go. This is not the final prediction. Make sure you get out and vote. Make sure you register 5 voters in a swing state and make sure they vote as well. We cannot leave any stones unturned in this election. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.